Good morning. It is Friday, August 13th, and we continue to see a rise in COVID cases, about 135,000 new cases just yesterday. On average, over the last week, we're seeing a new 125,000 cases each day across America. And in comparison to the world, we're leading with the number of new cases each day. So we're seeing some developments on the medical side. The FDA has approved a third booster for those who are immune compromised. But despite the advances in the medical technology and the science surrounding combating COVID, we're still hearing from people on the right and Republicans who are against masks and who are against vaccines and who are really downplaying this vaccine. I want you guys to take a look at this interview that was done with The Independent with one of the Republican lawmakers. Take a listen.
So this is concerning to me, and that's why I'm saying there's more research needed by the FDA before the FDA approves these vaccines. Because here's the problem, Anna. Once the vaccines are approved by the FDA, we are going to see the mandates for vaccines ramp up far more than they are right now. They're going to be mandated, and I fear they'll become law in some cities and some states. Biden would love to make it the law of the land, and I think that's completely wrong. Again, I'm not anti-vax. I am completely for people being allowed to make choices, medical choices for themselves and their families. And I don't think the FDA should approve a vaccine that it doesn't seem to be that effective, especially with COVID-19 raging all over the country. At least that's what the media tells us every single day. But I've talked to local hospitals here in my district and here in my state. Yes, the waiting rooms get full, but guess what? The waiting rooms are full of all kinds of things, not just COVID, some, car accidents, trauma, other illnesses, cancer, and so forth. But they're seeing about 30% of those numbers being COVID cases. So while the news tries to tell us the hospitals are slam-packed with COVID, that's just not the case. Everyone needs to get back down to common sense and remember that, we're human. We can't live forever. We are going to catch all kinds of diseases and illnesses and other viruses, and we get hurt sometimes. So I'm all for let's be rational with this. Let's be careful. Let's be cautious. And let's not turn into an authoritarian regime that forces shots in arms of people that don't want it.
Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene right there, Republican from Georgia. Then, she did say a lot, but the one thing that really stood out to me is, people can't live forever anyways. Basically calling the hospitals liars, saying that they're inaccurately reporting that they're running out of beds. How do we move forward with combating this surge in COVID cases when you still have people, Republican lawmakers, Republican politicians, right wingers who are saying that this whole thing is fake?
Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene, representative from the state of Georgia, and Georgia, is one of the voices that is going to ensure that we're going to be stuck in this pandemic for the foreseeable future. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene is. We're faced with a kind of a conundrum because we have on our side of the equation a lot of people who say that we should not talk about people like her. Why are we giving her attention? Why are we discussing her? Well, the fact of the matter is that she is a representative. She is a congressperson. She's an elected official in the temples of our empire. And she is spreading a level of misinformation intentionally that is going to get people killed. So I believe that she is an existential threat to our civilization, to be quite honest with you, because you're right. How do we proceed with this level of ignorance being represented in the halls of power of the greatest empire in the history of this planet?
And I just, the people who voted for her, the people who trust her and believe in her are not only putting themselves at risk, but as we're seeing these cases in children increase as well, they're putting their children at risk too.
Yeah, that's the absurdity of it all, is that I'm I can see, I often question how can a person be committed to something all the way to the point of death? And then, obviously, black people, we can answer that question pretty easily. So many of us have died in the fight for freedom and liberation in this country. But their commitment is to their bigotry and their ignorance. They have to create a fantasy of oppression. They want to be oppressed so bad because they see what they did to us. And they want to be able to control the narrative of the oppressed and the narrative of the oppressor. They want to be both Pharaoh as well as the children of Israel, because they're running around the country acting like they're the most aggrieved, you would think that they were living in the end times, that these evangelicals who have bookstores, who have TV channels, multiple. She's literally on television right now on a sub-tier network because they have so much money that I would put it like this. They have more money to do what they want in terms of spreading this misinformation, and it is going to keep us in this pandemic. We are in a dangerous time in history because this is a powerful movement, and they are so committed to death that they would ignore the safety of their children, not just themselves, but their children.
Mm. Yeah. And, I was reading an article yesterday that basically said there were a group of students, about 80 students who were exposed to COVID in the Washoe County School District. I believe it's on the border of Nevada and California. And this potential exposure happened after parents sent their child to school despite him testing positive for COVID. So here you have parents sending a child to school despite the fact that they've tested positive for COVID. Now, 80 students potentially have the virus. And what I realized, too, in these conversations, Ben, because you are usually in the southern region and I'm in the northern region of the country. Well, in the South, primarily, a lot of the kids have already gone back to school. In the North, due to the climate here, they usually postpone school until the day after Labor Day. So kids traditionally don't go back to school here until September, and then they get out a month later because of the climate. So kids haven't even gone back to school here yet. So we're not even seeing the numbers of the amount of children who are going to be exposed, who are going to contract COVID in its totality, because only half of the country has gone back to school. So this is only going to get worse. We reported earlier this week, 94,000 new cases among children. Yeah. And it's only going to get worse.
Sister Fort, that is the terrifying notion. And this is a part, now I want to be clear, this is a part where the Democrats are complicit as well, because you have to understand the role that school facilitates at the expense of our children. It does facilitate the role of babysitting our kids. Don't get me wrong, education is critical, necessary, and teachers do a whole lot more. I was a teacher, and I know that they are severely underpaid. Right. So this is not a comment to offend the school, or rather the teachers. But let's be, in terms of society, the reason they are so insistent on pushing our kids back into the schools is because they are the linchpin. They know if they can get us to abandon our kids, then we'll be like, well, hell, we'll just go out. We'll go to the bar. We'll keep spending money in this system. And they know a critical component of getting parents to spend money in this system is to make sure that their kids are occupied 8 hours a day.
And not only are the Democrats complicit, but you have faith leaders who are complicit. You have faith leaders who are throwing fuel on the fire. Take a listen at Greg Locke as he explained to his congregation reasons behind his stance on the vaccine, and ultimately that he really owes no one an explanation.
And none of the wicked shall understand. Whoa, shall understand what? Shall understand what's happening in the end times. None of the wicked shall understand. So guess what? You do not have to explain yourself anymore. I don't have to explain myself to National Public Radio. I don't have to explain myself to CNN. Why? Because no matter what explanation I give them, the wicked shall not understand. Because the natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, because they are spirits that discern, neither can he know them. You cannot argue, we've said this for years, you can't argue religion and politics with people and expect to come out clean. So I don't argue. I just state what I know to be facts up there, and I let people argue themselves all over Facebook, right? I don't care. Hit and run. I'm not going to argue with you. I know what the facts are. I know what the truth is. And no matter what I say, listen, lost people are not going to get it. So I'm not looking for an argument. I'm looking for the person that's so looking for truth, they think I'm so radically crazy. They're like, well, maybe there's something to this cat. That's the ones I'm after. Because the wicked are going to do wicked, and the wicked shall not understand. Stop arguing with them. They're not going to get it. Okay? The world does not understand why we kept our church open. They just don't. And I don't have to have them get it. Look, the world does not understand most of us, stance on the vaccine. They don't get it. But they don't have to get it. They don't have to understand why I say what I say. I've got to understand why I say what I say. And that's what keeps me convictional. That's what keeps me grounded. So no matter how much you argue with people, they are not going to understand. Look, you can tell a lost person 10,000 times that Joe Biden stole the election, and they will look at you like a billy goat eating briars.
He almost made it.
They get that deer in the headlight look like, oh my goodness, do you really believe such crazy, arrogant nonsense?
Georgia, he almost made it through his entire time. I thought I was going to have to explain to people the nature of how insidious he is positioning himself to sound reasonable based on the Bible. Now, I know for everyone who doesn't subscribe to the Bible, you're like, he sounds like a fool. But to people who subscribe to the Bible, he sounded reasonable. He almost made it out, but his love for Donald Trump shined through. Thank you, Greg Locke, because I don't have to say anything.
Yeah, I mean, he did open with scripture. And to me, that is what is so dangerous about this viewpoint, this perspective, this lifestyle, this insane love for Donald Trump that continues even after the man has lost the election and is still under investigation for criminal charges. It is so dangerous to know that you have advocates like Greg Locke who are corrupting the word of God in order to further perpetuate this ideology. And to hear, think about that. If culturally, if we accept that, I don't have to understand where you're coming from, like, so we're just removing the value that we place on civil discourse, on coming to understanding, on compromising. So and when you look at the foundation of democracy, what is democracy based on? That's right. You know, and so you just. No, we don't have to explain ourselves. We're just going to be over here and we're just going to be crazy.
Right. That's because America is a farce. But let me explain why. Because it subscribes to it purports to subscribe to the ideology of democracy. But at the individual level, they subscribe to the idea of individualism to the extreme. So, and what I mean by that is they honestly believe that they have no responsibility to their brother or sister or non-gender conforming individual whatsoever. They do not believe that they have any responsibility to anyone but themselves. And they have enshrined that on the altar of their hearts, in the altar of their religion, right? Because that's what he's saying here. He's saying he's using the Bible to justify the fact that he has the right to live in isolation, in a silo, completely separate from everyone else. And he's saying that but Brother Locke, can I tell you what you're doing? You're doing that to other human beings who are Christians as well. And so for him to actually work, for his religion and his religiosity to actually make sense, he has to subscribe to a religion that sets him apart from even other Christians. This man can't come to our church and preach this. He can't preach. He's not preaching a universal God. He's preaching the God of Donald Trump.
And, you know, I just really hope and even pray for people who are following behind him to be able to see the truth, because it is a deep form, an evil form of spiritual abuse to be perverting the word of God in that manner.
That's right. But they do. I mean, it's a Sunday for them. Right. You got to understand, these are the same people who he comes from I don't know what his bloodline is, but I know what his ideological lineage is. And it's the same people who would have lynched us on Saturday night and go to Sunday school on Sunday morning.
Mm. It feels cultish.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's I mean, a lot of church has it's kind of a little unspoken tenet of most religious organizations. But setting that aside, this is on 10. This is Jim Jones. This is drinking the Kool-Aid. Like, these are people who follow their ideology to the extent that, yeah, no, Georgia, yeah, it's a cult. Because you have to think about, what scenarios do we see people willingly and happily sacrificing their children for a particular ideology? That is literally a cult. You nailed that.
And then to think that not only is this, affecting people's religious views, but their health, their medical views, I think to some degree, we've arrived at a place in society where social media is so influential over the way people make decisions. And a lot of the times I'm looking at people like Greg Locke, who's doing this stuff for views. He, like, you start to ask, like, what is the intent behind the action? What even people like DeSantis, what is the intent behind the action? What drives you? What is your why? Why are you doing this? I just can't arrive at any other logical conclusion other than a lot of these guys are trying to make a name for themselves, trying to build a platform, they're trying to leave a legacy. And unfortunately, it's at the expense of so many innocent lives. That's
right. That's right. And it's Georgia, we are at the stage of human devolution that this is the pathway to success for him, for Marjorie Taylor Greene. The pathway to their victory is who can be the most unreasonable, irrational, absurd individual on the national stage. They took their model from negative 45, as Brother Mac would say. They took their model directly from negative 45, and now they are replicating it. It is its own virus, but this is the second stage of the evolution of the virus of Donald Trump. Which is itself an extension. I'm sorry, I can't leave it at Donald Trump, which is itself an extension of America. I'm sorry.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, I've been disheartened in seeing, city by city. We played the clip earlier this week from the school board meeting in Tennessee, where you saw all of these protesters coming out, attacking other folks who believe in wearing masks. We're seeing the same thing now happening in Georgia as kids are going back to school. Then in terms of these protests, parents coming out saying that they don't believe in masks, they don't want their kids to have to wear a mask. These are the same people who last year had a problem with people coming out to protest the death of George Floyd.
Last year, one of my biggest tweets of all time, not that we're keeping score, but one was when I said, we're not going to die. We're not going to die for capitalism. They want us to be willing to go out and die for capitalism, but not for liberation and justice for George Floyd. Right. But look at how nature flipped and reversed this thing. Look at how these fools are out here expecting us to have some connection or some empathy for their protests because, oh my goodness, they have to wear a mask. Oh Lord, they have to get a vaccine. For the love of God, they have to actually survive a survivable pandemic. And they are so oppressed because of that.
And I would say for those of you who have not seen this footage, I think we should go ahead and cue it up because I know some people missed out when we played it the first time.
These are the protesters in Williamson County,
Tennessee. Yeah. This was after a school board meeting. You had a man who went and talked about the importance of wearing a mask, was followed out of the school. And then here you see these two men here threatening him. We don't have to play the whole clip, but I do think for those who missed out on it earlier this week, we should play a bit of it.
And everybody's taking notes, buddy. Keep that little smug.
I want to see your face so I know what you look like. Put it back on.
Put that mask back on.
Put your mask on.
Poor kids stuck in that bacteria. How do you like that? We know who you are. We know who you are.
Keep it calm.
No more masks.
Keep it calm. Keep it calm.
No more masks.
We're on these guys' side. They're on our side.
No, they're not. They're not on our side.
The police are on our side. The police are on our side.
So,
Calm
you don't,
down.
Yes.
when you see,
We know who you
not only are they going to advocate for not wearing a mask, but we're seeing this evolve into them attack those who are speaking out and advocating for wearing a mask.
That's right. That's right. That's right. You got to think about this in terms of social media. I think at this juncture, everybody listening should understand the tactic. It is when you make a comment and the swarm comes in. They come in to attack you and to make you second guess yourself, and then to make you even if you don't second guess yourself, all those people will come and reply nonstop. And they're actually people paid to go online and to reply to anonymous people. Georgia, they're so sophisticated in this misinformation campaign that they have it down to the micro level where we see it in this. The swarm has shown up, and they're there to make sure that they intimidate anybody who goes against their political narrative.
But when did health choices become such a political thing, especially when you're talking about the health of children here? This was at a school board meeting, you know, and you juxtapose that against last year, people coming out and fighting for Black lives, for Black liberation, basically just saying, stop killing us. And all of these people were against that. Oh, it's rioting. Oh, they're looting. You know, there were pieces of legislation that were proposed to remove your right to welfare, your right to any state aid, your right to tuition aid, your right to any state issued funds if you were charged with any level of marching or protesting. Now, although that hasn't passed, at least not in the state of Minnesota, the fact that that is a tactic and a strategy that lawmakers are trying to incorporate so that it will deter people for protesting for Black Lives Matter might actually come to bite themselves in the butt, because here we're seeing more white protesters. However, the only difference, I'll say, Ben, is that what that man said was the police are on our side.
That's it.
And so the chances that these white folks are going to get charged with any type of protesting or rioting is almost impossible. It's almost impossible to think that they'd be arrested or charged with anything for what they did here.
That's right. That's right. And there lies the fundamental. You said, when did health become political? That's because America has made a sport of politics. See, for Black folks, politics has been a matter of life and death. Y'all been playing games. Because somebody, please tell me, what white folks really got to complain about here in this country? There are poor white folks, to be sure. But y'all been siding with the wrong people for the longest time, and y'all want us to come over there and side with y'all despite your racism. But the rich white folks, see, let me tell you one thing about this group. Some of those folks in that room who are making all this ruckus, they're vaccinated. They're vaccinated, and they're going to be okay. And then some other folks in there, they're not, and they're going to take it home, even if they are vaccinated. That room is a petri dish that we're looking at on the screen right now. That is a petri dish. And I just know that we are at a very, very dangerous time where this is becoming the norm from people who have nothing to be aggrieved over, because they got nannies at home. They got Maserati. They got everything they want and need. And they out here acting like they're the most aggrieved people in the country. Because one last detail, Georgia, because these are not poor white folks, because the poor white, the ones who are working next to poor Black folks at the grocery, they're the essential workers. The poor white folks who are essential workers ain't got time to be out here. They look like they got on some stuff they got at Banana Republic, wherever they shop at. I don't know. Go ahead, Georgia. Sorry.
Well, when you look at people who are below the poverty line or at the poverty line, through the entire pandemic, people had the privilege and the luxury to go home and to stay at home so that they could be safe. Most of those workers were still going into work every day, trying to figure out where they could afford to send their kids. And so they didn't have the luxury to make decisions that were going to keep them at the lowest risk of exposure to COVID. They had to be out here. And so usually if you sit down and you talk to essential workers, they were the ones who they were wearing gloves, wearing masks. They were utilizing all of the PPE to try and stay safe because they didn't have the luxury of staying home.
That's right. And that's the distinction here. If you don't mind, put the that guy back up, the guy in the pink shirt and the kin next to him, because I really do that. The families that are out here fighting at the essential worker level, they are absolutely trying to save their lives because they're having to go out and work on behalf of these people. These folks, these are not essential workers. This guy, that's Abercrombie and Fitch. He's going to the golf club later. The essential workers, those are the people who are that out there that actually do have something to be aggrieved over. White essential workers, these are the folks that you have been aligned with all this time, and they are committed to getting you killed because they don't want you to wear a mask, and they don't want to have to come into your restaurant wearing a mask. So you really got to realign. We got to really figure out who's on our side and who's not.
And there have been these campaigns when you see stuff like this happening where, if you just pause the video and take a screenshot of at least those two individuals who ran up on the car and started threatening the man in the car, I think we should take a screenshot and we should find out who they are. We should find out where they work. And I think that their employers should answer for how they're behaving and being out here making threats. And I'd be curious to know if their employer mandates masks in the workplace.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I guarantee you they do. And here's, I bet you one thing. I know he's vaccinated. I guarantee you those fools out there are vaccinated, but they want to make sure that you are not. They want to make sure that your children are not. They want to make sure that your children are not protected in schools. But their kids are not going to your schools. That's the thing. You think these two men have kids at your school? No.
Absolutely not. There was an op-ed article that talked about the number of people who we've lost during this pandemic and the population shift. Also, the way that the population is changing in America, contrasted with the fact that there's going to be massive redistricting now that, the census is happening again. So when you kind of throw in all of these different variables, you can begin to see how it's all really a strategy to maintain power.
Yeah, that's a period. Nothing else needs to be added.
You guys, we are on the clock. It is Friday the 13th. I hope you guys enjoy your weekend. I am signing off, but stick around for more on the Benjamin Dixon Show.